Motherhood is divine, baby. You brought life into the world. And so on the days that you feel burdened down by this heavy, weighty, scary responsibility, all that they are, I don't even have all the words for the difficulties that I'm sure it encompasses. But on the days where all of that weight begins to weigh you down, remember the beauty and the divinity in this role. And so it's not identityless. I don't want you to feel like you have to hearken back to yourself, your former self before motherhood. Those days are done, not because that woman is dead, but that woman prepared you for the woman that you are right now, the woman that gave life, the woman that birthed another spirit into the world. Woof, child. That identity that was necessary, you shaped and you formed and you kept her going, and God kept you going, but your resilience, your spirit, your vigor shaped her into all the things that she was so that she could be in this exact moment, at this exact time, giving life, giving wisdom, giving perspective, and birthing a new generation of leaders. And all of the roles, teachers, all the roles that our children will play, right? You're continuing on in the multiplication of God's goodness. Humans, every human being, good and bad and indifferent, are manifestations, physical, material manifestations of God's goodness and God's love. And you, baby girl, have gotten to be a part of that. You're a superhero. Truly, right? Hello, family, and welcome back to the Bastion of Critical Thinking. My name is Raven, therapist, thought leader, and theologian. And I am always so happy to have you here with me today again. And if you're new here, welcome. Have a seat. Make yourself comfortable, because today we're going to be doing something that I know that the world doesn't necessarily love doing all the time, which is critically thinking. We like to do that over here in the Bastion. So if you like that kind of stuff, I need you to like, comment, and subscribe, because that is so critical to the work that we do here and for us being able to continue in this work and grow in this work and all of those good things. So without further ado, let's just hop right into the topic of today's video. So today I'm going to be delving into my therapist bag a bit. If you're not new here, you know that I talk a lot about going in and out of those three bags that I talked about, or that I referenced about myself earlier: therapist, thought leader, and theologian. Well, today I'm going to be in my therapist bag heavy, because recently I've had an influx of clients. Well, if I'm being honest, I have clients that talk through this issue all the time, but I have had an influx of moms coming into my practice, right? And or into my therapy chair. And they've been essentially crying and really sorrowful around the fact that they feel like they've lost their identities. And they feel like they've lost their identities because they feel like so much of who they've become, inevitably so, right, is steeped in momhood and motherhood in general. And so as a result of that, they feel like, man, so much of who they've known themselves to be for such a long time prior to having kids, obviously, feels like it's been stripped from them or even stolen from them. And to the degree that they try and like circumvent that, and they try and like push it away and like, no, get back to themselves. They always find themselves still just tethered to that baby or that child, even depending on whatever age your child is. Like moms, just once you're engulfed in that role, it's hard not to really be in that role and embody that role. And so anyway, they find themselves struggling to be in that role fully, and they love it, but then they feel such a pull, right? Pull between them, their old selves, and there's part of them that know themselves as the woman, right? Or as the wife, or as the girlfriend, or as the daughter, or as the worker in whatever field that they're in, worked in anyway. And just all the other roles that we play as humans, right? They struggle with that. And so first of all, I empathize with that, because I couldn't imagine being thrust into this new position that almost like completely takes you over, right? There's no hood like momhood. And let me be fully transparent. I don't have kids, so I can't speak to it explicitly with regard to like my experiences in it. However, I am well versed in pathology and psychology in general, and how humans work, and that includes moms. And so I just thought that I'd offer some words of advice and some words of wisdom that I felt I gathered while in this conversation with one of my clients, right? Okay, so the first thing I want to say to moms who feel like they've lost their identity is that you're doing good. You don't have to feel like you've lost your identity or that you are this fractured version of yourself. And you know why? It's because your identity is evolving. Culture has done such a terrible job at presenting momhood to people, right? One, they just present this fractured image of it in the sense that like they either super glamorize it and make it feel like it's this rosy, glamorized thing that you just do. You're doing life one day and then boom, you get married or you don't, whatever. And then you become a mom and then boom, then you do that just with such ease. And the truth is that's just not the case. And to be fair to culture and everybody, I honestly don't think people do that intentionally. I think in part people show a rosy view of momhood because they love their babies. And so sometimes it is like, yeah, this is hard, but like, look at this fun, cute little thing that I love so much and adore. So I think that's in part why. And then two, some of it, I'm sure we present a rosy picture of it because like sexism in America or sexism in the world in general. Like people just expect women to do these hard things like child rearing and child labor. And then we just don't really care or to get that invested into the difficulties of it. So it's a few reasons why I'm sure it's been presented and glamorized as this rosy job. Nonetheless, it's just not that simple, right? And to the extent that you do feel like you're failing at it or you're not doing that great at it, and then boom, you feel all these feelings of guilt, right? And you feel as though you've lost the most important part of your identity because now you're doing this menial thing that the world doesn't necessarily see as valuable. And so I guess what I'm trying to get at is that this whole conversation about like, oh, I feel identityless or I feel like I've lost my identity is in part because or a result of culture shooting us and feeding us and thrusting us, should I say, into these narratives around motherhood being this secondhand thing and this thing you do if you've chosen to let go of all the other things, right? And so we in part feel identityless after motherhood because the identities that culture has bolstered as most important and as most valuable are the ones that are outside of motherhood. Right. So I'm not sure if it's a you've lost your identity or if it's a you've evolved your identity. Right. I think your identity is mother now. Right. And it's not that that's the only part of your identity, but that is a part of your identity that, yeah, it does take up a great amount of space, valuable space at that, even though it's difficult and even though it's scary. And it's one of the hardest jobs that anybody will ever do. But I guess my point is saying this is that you were designed for this, right? Now, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that women who can't have kids or who choose not to have kids were not designed for this or that they are designed inaccurately in any way. That's not what I'm getting at. So do not hear what I'm saying. However, what I am saying is if your body was, if you were able to produce a child and you've been able to bring a child into this world and do the labor and rear a child into adulthood and into personhood, then that speaks volumes to what your identity is and who you are, right? And that speaks and even to the extent that you feel so innately capable of taking care of that child, right? Or innately capable of like knowing what they need and knowing when they're hurting and knowing when they're sad and all of the things, those things that we would just classify like as just mother intuition. The fact that you feel all of that is because it's a part of an identity that you were bred into, right? That you were born into and born for. And I want to encourage you moms to, if you can, right? I'm not getting down. This isn't a condemnation in any way, but I want to encourage your hearts because like I said in sessions, I hear this so much and I started to really think through it. I'm like, I hate that so many women feel this way. Again, I get it in part. I want to be very clear. After you've had a baby, your whole entire world changes, right? Nothing about your life is the same. Nothing about your body is the same. Nothing about your mindset and your anxiety, even in your feelings, everything. All of it is different and nothing is the same and likely will not ever be the same. And that takes a moment of grief. That takes something's going by. That takes some time to grieve and that takes some sobering time. And it's difficult. I don't want to be dismissive of that at all. And in that same sense, I want you to also be encouraged that this isn't a loss of identity. This is you adding to the beauty and the complexity that it is to be yourself, your full self, your whole woman self. You are a woman capable of child rearing and producing the next generation. That is a fantastic role to be thrust into. difficult. Fantastic doesn't take away the difficulty of it. But I just want you to know and understand that your value, your worth, your identity has not been diminished. If anything, it's been multiplied, and multiplied in the most beautiful way that nothing tangible or in this material world can really quantify or can really even articulate the beauty of it, right? And which brings me to my next point that I kind of wanted to make sure I get into. This is deeply spiritual, right? I've been in Genesis so heavily lately because I'm working on a new book. Shameless plug. I'll talk more about it later. But essentially, what I've been studying is and researching has been what it is to be human and what it is like how God originally designed us, right? Before all of the antics, before sin came into play, before the world and culture began to redefine who we are, and our flesh began to take over the ways that we see ourselves and one another, before we started to corrupt the way that we engage with other humans even. I'm studying just our original design, what God originally had planned for human beings. And in studying that, it brought me even deeper into this thought surrounding motherhood when clients started to bring this up more frequently in my sessions, because I'm like, ladies, it broke my heart. Like I said earlier, it broke that moms are feeling this way. But then it also like it struck me a little bit because I'm like, oh, girl. Oh, you think that your identity is solely about the job you had. Oh, you think your identity is solely about the role that you played out in the world. Oh, you think your identity is solely about the amount of money that you make. Oh, you think that your identity is solely about how good you are in the bedroom, right? How good all of the things. You think your identity is solely about that. And guess how you think that? Because we live in a world now post Eden, right? Where we have to work and it's based solely on meritocracy and it's based solely on how we perform and how we show up. Again, I'm not saying that that's inherently bad because that's how we don't have a world, we don't have a society unless people contribute to it in substantive ways. So I'm not necessarily negating that. However, what I am saying is the more you tap into your spiritual self, the more you tap into your soulish realm, the more you begin to see and come into grips and come into oneness with God's original design for us. You naturally are capable of making that baby and making babies and then subsequently taking care of it because originally you were designed for that. And right now I'm just talking about biological inclinations, right? Again, I'm not saying that you are just called to the kitchen. I'm not saying that you just need to be barefoot and pregnant for forever. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying because I'm a highly educated Black woman, right? Woman who loves doing all manner of things in the social settings and public settings, even hell, what I'm doing right now. So I'm not negating that we can play different roles and that we can refine and advance our identity in multiple ways. I think what I'm essentially just getting at is that I don't want that to be the nexus of all we see about ourselves or all that we think about ourselves. You are a spiritual being who was originally designed for things that are immaterial, things that you can't necessarily touch or feel, but things that are wholesome and beautiful and divine, shall I say, even. Motherhood is divine, baby. You brought life into the world. And so on the days that you feel burdened down by this heavy, weighty, scary responsibility, all that they are, I don't even have all the words for the difficulties that I'm sure it encompasses. But on the days where all of that weight begins to weigh you down, remember the beauty and the divinity in this role. And so it's not identityless. I don't want you to feel like you have to hearken back to yourself, your former self before motherhood. Those days are done, not because that woman is dead, but that woman prepared you for the woman that you are right now, the woman that gave life, the woman that birthed another spirit into the world. Woof, child. That identity that was necessary, you shaped and you formed and you kept her going, and God kept you going, but your resilience, your spirit, your vigor shaped her into all the things that she was so that she could be in this exact moment at this exact time, giving life, giving wisdom, giving perspective, and birthing a new generation of leaders, a new generation of mothers, sons, children, right? All of the roles, teachers, all the roles that our children will play, right? You're continuing on in the multiplication of God's goodness. Humans, every human being, good and bad and indifferent, are manifestations, physical, material manifestations of God's goodness and God's love. And you, baby girl, have gotten to be a part of that. That is your identity. You're a superhero. Truly, right? So I hope that all made sense. My essential point is just that moms, don't feel like you have to harken back to this old identity, right? You are still that woman, just now with added pieces. So continue to add to her. You didn't lose anything. You're only adding to that beautiful woman that she was prior and the beautiful, evolved, even more wise woman that she's continuing to become as she gives birth to the next generation. You're a superhero, girl. Don't forget it. All right, guys. That was therapist-y and kind of like preachery girl, but I hope y'all get the point. I love you guys so much. I really send this to a mom. I'm dead serious. I felt this so deeply, if you can't tell. And I just really wanted to get this out because so many mamas are struggling with that feeling of identityless or feeling like they're not contributing. And meanwhile, they're literally saving the world and keeping the world spinning. Baby, you do it, everything, and then some. You ain't lost your identity. You only added to it. Okay, I'm done. Let me know what your thoughts are. Like, comment, and subscribe. Send this to a mom. I mean it. Send this to a mom. If you know, even your own mom, who may have felt like now she's in her later years, right? And she feels useless and she feels worthless, and the world has made her to feel worthless. And the world does that to women so much, especially after a certain age, because they relegate so much of their identity to their beauty and what they contribute with regard to how they look. But man, the wisdom of a woman, man, like especially a seasoned woman who's lived, honey, in material, you can't buy it. Sitting up under a grandmother's feet, you can't buy that. Listen. So send this to a mom, old or young, seasoned rather, right? Seasoned or younger, who feels like she's struggling with her identity and feels like she wants to be or needs to be encouraged about who she is and who God has designed her to be. Send this to them and let them know that they are valuable and that their voice is needed. Okay? All right, guys. I love you so much. Talk to you later. Bye.